Tremors 2 Aftershocks is the direct-to-video sequel to Tremors and takes place a few years after Earl and Val destroyed the Graboid menace in Perfection, Nevada. But the years haven't been too kind to Earl. He's single, living with 2 ostriches that he used up all his 15 minutes of fame money on, and is essentially just in a depressing rut trying endlessly to make the birds fuck so he can sell the babies and get some money. But over in Mexico, a new horde of Graboids have begun feeding off some oil field workers, so the boss comes to seek out Earl for help. In the first Tremors movie, no one was really prepared for what the hell was happening, but this time, Earl can have any weapon or supplies he desires, not to mention a pretty fucking good $50,000 for every single Graboid he kills. Man, when I was a kid, I really wanted that arcade machine, only to discover when I got older that it's not even fucking real. Anyway, he teams up with Grady, a cab driver obsessed with him and the events of Perfection, and I'm not sure how I feel about him. On the one hand, he has a childlike sense of wonder and excitement that I honestly think I'd probably share. I mean, come on, I get paid to go out with military-grade explosives and blow up giant monster worms. How could I not be excited about that shit? But on the other hand, Grady is really fucking dumb. Dumber than a slug that got stuck in dry dog shit on the sidewalk and died as a result. He feels like the writer just couldn't figure out what to do with his character, so they just made him a moron. He doesn't even know what rock, paper, scissors is, runs around on the ground knowing full well what happens to people that do that, and is just really oblivious to everything around him. It's kind of annoying at times. Also along for the ride is Burt Gummer, played by the always brilliant Michael Gross. Since the first movie, his wife has left him, and he's just kind of sitting there covered in food watching World War II footage, which is hilarious because that's exactly how I'd picture a Burt depression. Bert's the kind of guy that when the bombs fall, you just run to his house because you just know he has an underground bunker, which he actually does, by the way. Bert's awesome. Speaking of which, can someone explain to me why the fuck Bert has a cat on his wall? Originally, Kevin Bacon was supposed to reprise his role as Val, but Universal decided to cut the budget from $17 million to a measly $4 million. So the script was rewritten to accommodate this, and thus no Kevin Bacon. That would have been one hell of a sequel, though. For most of the movie, it's your standard monster movie romp, with fun action set pieces, some pretty funny dialogue between the characters, and some not so funny dialogue, but about 40 minutes into the movie, its tone drastically changes into horror. Earl and Grady find a Graboid that seems sick and won't go anywhere. The Mexican government offered to pay them $100,000 if they managed to capture a live one, so as you'd expect, they're hype as shit. But soon, really creepy sounds start echoing throughout the valley. I don't know what it was about these shrieks that the Graboids make here, but it always freaked me out. It's just so unnatural.
I bet that burned a skinny ass. God almighty.
Well, something busts its way out of the Graboid, and in the words of good ol' Earl,
it's a whole new ball game. A whole new goddamn ball game. Well, you know what to do, right? Right? I don't know shit!
But then the movie quickly goes back to a fun monster romp. Turns out the Graboids evolved into a new creature dubbed the Shrieker. I love how they introduced them. The way Grady and Earl aim up and how the camera is like wide angle, so as if something huge and massive is gonna pop into frame when suddenly...
What the hell is that?
So yeah, this adorable little freak of nature is a Shrieker. And yes, they are adorable in a fucked up I'm gonna rip your face out of your ass kind of way. While the Graboid's hunted by sounds and vibrations, the Shrieker hunts by opening its head vagina and tracks body heat. Considering this movie's budget was only $4 million bucks, the practical effects on both the Graboids and Shriekers are really damn good. There is some CGI in here, but they rarely use it, only bringing it out when the Shriekers are running around or actually moving, which isn't often. For the most part, they just stand in place and move their heads around like twitchy birds. It works. Because the CGI is dated, obviously this movie came out in 1996, but what really blows my mind is that the CGI in this movie actually looks more convincing than Tremors 3. How the hell does that happen? I really have a hard time believing that this movie didn't get a theatrical run. I always assumed it did until just recently when I did some research, but in reality it was only shown in like a couple of theaters. When you see a direct-to-video sequel like this, you can usually always count on it being total ass quality, but somehow Tremors 2, on just its $4 million budget, manages to hold its own against the original movie and a lot of other monster flicks that come out nowadays even today. Sure, it isn't as good as the original, it's hard to top that one. The great chemistry that Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward had isn't in here, but you've still got some really good practical monster effects, Burt Gummer and Earl Bassett being badass monster hunters again, and it's well-paced, fun, and exciting enough that it's worth a definite watch if you haven't seen it, and it's without a doubt the best of the Tremors sequels.
Subject has taken the bait. Preparing to fire. Memo. 4 pounds of C4 may be a little excessive.